now I'm going to put my police cap on. There's no way we could do this episode without talking about Memphis, right? Like I'm Mr. Law Enforcement guy, and every time one of these incidents happens, I cringe, hold my breath, and go, okay, how much farther is this going to set us back in American policing because this incident happened? And look, everyone's seen the video. I'm not going to play the video from Memphis. It's awful. It's criminal, right? And guess what? The system worked. The system completely worked. They were arrested for murder and kidnapping like it's supposed to be.
Right.
That's a cut and dry case. And, just my thoughts on that, they didn't do any police activity. They may have pulled the guy over, he ran, but there was no policing going on after that stop. It was just a beatdown. I mean, they're not trying to handcuff him at all. I didn't see anybody actually try to handcuff this man until the very end. They're beating him on the ground. They're holding him up, taking swings. None of that's ever been taught in any police academy in the country, right?
Yeah.
Like it just that stuff isn't taught, isn't how it is, and it's not the way it should be. And they're total criminal thugs. But it's not always as cut and dry in that. That one's a super cut and dry case, right? Like you can look at it even as a cop, where I'm back the blue and all the things, and I'm like, yeah, those are scumbags that need to go to jail. It's not always like that. So I want to play another one that's making the rounds right now, some video of a police arrest, and let's take a look at this one.
Ground, get on the ground. Get on the fucking ground. Don't fucking move. Where's the gun at? Let me see your fucking hand. Where's the fucking gun?
I don't have it.
Motherfucker. What the fuck's your problem? Boy told me we wouldn't have any questions at the store. Hey, can you shut it down? Do you know where he was done?
I don't know where he threw it at.
It's right here. Hey, don't fucking move, man! What the fuck is your problem?
All right. So it looks terrible, right? Like
Right.
It looks bad. However, what happened was, right? And from a person who doesn't know the story, it looks terrible. And I'll get to my thoughts on this in a second. But what had happened was this suspect had just pulled a gun out and shot at these two cops. It happened in Phoenix in late October. He pulls out a handgun, takes 2 shots at these cops, and then runs into the business. Okay, so that part really isn't clear in the video that this man just tried to murder these 2 officers and then proceeded to get his ass kicked. The Maricopa County DA decided not to file, and it's a key reason, right? It's because most of the force was used before that they even handcuffed him, and they had not even recovered the firearm yet. So these guys are in hot pursuit of someone who just tried to murder them, run in, put the boots on them, rough them up a little bit, but they haven't even found the gun that this guy's trying to kill him with. So the DA even decided that one wouldn't ever get conviction, especially probably in Arizona. And my thoughts on this one, right? Number one, the guy absolutely deserved to get his ass kicked. No question.
100%.
100%. But number two, the officers should not have done it, right? But that brings up like the reality of policing, right? It's, yes, they shouldn't have done it, right? But someone had just tried to murder them. And if you're a regular, normal person and someone tries to murder you, you're probably going to chase that person down if you even have the courage to do it and beat the shit out of them. Right? Like that's where that's going. Right or wrong, emotions are emotions, and cops are people, right? And with 800,000 cops active on the street, there's no way to ever avoid these kinds of incidents happening. And I don't really blame these guys that much for what happened. 20 years ago, before body cams, when I first started, that 100% would have happened. Like it's we're getting to a place now where we're trying to have police be perfect people, and that's never going to work in the job that they do, right?
Right.
I'm not saying that excessive force is great at all. I'm just saying you have to look at the context, and you have to remember that they're people, and it's not natural for someone to try to kill you or hurt you, or for you to feel like you're going to be killed or hurt. So your bodies respond. So what's the perspective of someone like you, who's not in law enforcement, but obviously you're trained in direct action. You've had a lot of time with firearms doing the things. What do you think about when you see something like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was, everyone's, like you said, this has been making the rounds. Everyone's commenting on it. Most people commenting without context. And then once there is context, there's still a little bit of divide. Some people saying, okay, they still should have done that. Some people saying that I would have done the same thing, whatever the case might be. And I think you're spot on with your assessment. Here's the deal. Until you've been in a situation like that, and hopefully you haven't been, and hopefully you never will be if you're out there where your body's and your life's been put in imminent danger. But you go to a different place, and everyone doesn't go to the same place, but you go to a different place, whatever that means for you. These guys were scared. That's not a bad thing. That your adrenaline's pumping. You've got fear because you were just targeted. You're pissed off. You're gonna take that out for that person took you on a journey where you thought for a second, maybe I'm not going home to see my wife, my kids, my whatever, whoever's there. Maybe there's no one there. Maybe it's just your TV dinner and a drink. I don't know. But like, you're not going home. It's a big deal. So could it have been handled better? Of course. But like, most of us would have done the same damn thing, said the same words, and been aggressive with that assailant, that person, because he had just shot. So I'm in lockstep with you. Like, you can make the argument they could have handled it better, but I would challenge anyone who is making that argument to put themselves in that exact situation and see how you would have done, because I bet it would have been pretty similar if you didn't just haul ass and run the opposite direction in the first place.
Yeah, usually they'll haul ass the other direction and then call the police to come deal with these scary bad people for them. And then if they take an extra punch at the end, they're the bad guys and go to federal prison.
Right.
So like, that's the system we're setting up for these people. Is like, policing is incredibly hard. Like, I think it's harder than even going overseas and doing things, because the scrutiny that's involved with it, and the messaging that all cops are racist and systemic racism is policing, and all of this bullshit that goes with it.
Yeah.
So, it's not pretty out there. I think people need to be ready to accept a certain level of violence in policing, and that's not going to be a popular opinion. That's not going to be something that is easily taken in and thinking that's okay. But the reality is the streets are completely a violent place, and they're not always going to be pretty. It's not cut and dry. There's scrutiny that is in no other place than American policing. And if we keep hanging every cop out to dry that gets heated and it was just assaulted or just tried to be murdered, and then they take the extra thumps at the end, and we hang them out to dry and send them to jail and lose their job and ruin their lives, who's going to want to be a cop in America, right? You're going to get the Memphis PD syndrome, and that was, it looks as if it was all based upon lowering hiring standards, wokeness, getting their diversity numbers and everything else, and that is what we're headed to, like thuggery. Like the Phoenix guys, in my opinion, are not thugs. They are cops that are ramped up who just were almost murdered. The Memphis guys are thugs. If we continue to hammer every bit of violence on the streets that police get involved with in these kind of encounters, we're screwed. And it's going to be Memphis all day.
Get the whole story on Red Voice Media Premium using the link below, completely uncensored and ad-free.